victims in this story. Here now we bring in Jennifer Stefano and Bill Hennessy, co-founders of the co-founder of the St. Louis Tea Party. Were you co-founder of the St. Louis Tea Party?
I was not. I had a little Tea Party group in Pennsylvania. I now work for Americans for Prosperity, but when this was unfolding, I was trying to start a little Tea Party.
One of my favorite groups, Americans for Prosperity. Jennifer, let me start with you. What kind of harassment did they get? I mean, I've got a laundry list of things. You tell me how. What kind of harassment?
Well, when I was calling other groups to ask how I filed with the IRS, it was coming back to me that they were being asked for very personal information, their personal Facebook pages, the personal nature of their relationships with political candidates and politicians, and more, the list of their donors, their members, emails, and rallies. And I went to the IRS, actually got a hold of someone at the IRS and said, is this true? Will I have to turn this over if I start a Tea Party group? Yes, it was true. And furthermore, we had to sign sworn statements if we omitted anything, it would be considered perjury. You could be put in jail. I was a pregnant stay-at-home mother at the time. I couldn't risk that.
Bill Hennessy, all right, you've heard what Jennifer said. Yeah, I was just compiling notes, reading all the various accounts today. Besides asking for the donors list, they want the people participating in each event. They want copies of speeches at events. They want copies of training manuals for the group. They want to know what books you read. Is that your experience too, Bill? By the way, what books have you read? No, I'm just kidding. But was that your experience?
Well, we had, yes, we've heard that story, not from St. Louis Tea Party. Actually, our application has been sitting on someone's desk for 2 years now. We haven't gotten anything from them. So we operate as if we're a 501c4, you know, to try to assume that we will be granted that status, but we're getting nothing, and that has gives us a big problem, Larry, because we don't want to go out and do too much fundraising. We raise enough money to get by, to run our websites, to run our little events every month, and occasional rallies. But it's really dampened our ability to form into a stronger organization.
So actually, what you're saying, Bill, is what Rick Santelli just said a few moments ago. The attacks and the stalling tactics and all the questions. What did I see? In Richmond, Virginia, they asked one Tea Party group 53 questions for response. So this, in effect, keeps your donors away and defunds the Tea Party. Santelli was right.
It absolutely does. It absolutely does. And you know what else? It also keeps those Tea Party leaders tied up doing nonsense bureaucratic paper shuffling when they should be out running their organizations. We don't have big staffs. We don't have a CPA. We don't have a team of lawyers. We usually have 2, 3, 4, 5 people on a board of directors who have to do all the work. And if they're working with the IRS on answering what's on their Facebook page and what's the last book you read, they can't be out doing what our mission is. And our mission is to remind people that when you have very big government, very powerful government, these things happen.
Yes.
Jenny Pethokoukis, in effect, if it takes 3 years, let's use that number, the IRS did take the Tea Party groups and other conservative groups out of the 2012 election. If you had to wait 3 years, let's say you filed right at something new, maybe 2010, 2011, you're out of the 2012 election.
Right. They put them in the cooler.
That's it. Right.
For that amount of time. And what we found out today, that there was a group that same thing happened. Delay. So you know what they did? They went out and they changed their name to some sort of like green solution, some sort of, you know, kind of climate change. They were approved in 3 weeks. They fast-tracked them. So we have fast-tracking groups friendly to the president or the president's causes. The other guys put on ice.
All right, Jennifer, what about threats and penalties? The IRS is, after all, the IRS. Now, I am reading in some accounts that there were threats, and there were even tax auditing threats. Did that occur, too?
Sure, of course this was occurring. And the idea that somehow if you didn't submit all this information, it could be considered perjury. And what really keeps people like me up at night is not just that I had to shut down and I was suppressed, and luckily I did find a big group like Americans for Prosperity, but the thing we were fighting all these years was that in the president's health care law, he empowered the very organization that now has been going out against his political opposition broad policing powers over the nation's health care. Now, if they are doing this for your political views, imagine what they could do to you on your health care.
Or no, just stay right there. If they continue to do it, if there's no reform in the agency, if they continue to operate politically against conservative groups, they will continue to operate politically against people regarding Obamacare. If people don't want to play, if they don't want to join up with Obamacare, if there are disputes with Obamacare, if there are waivers with the Obamacare, the IRS becomes a political body all to itself and actually can threaten you, throw you in jail.
Yeah, and let me give you this little fun fact. what we will have to do starting in January of 2014 is every single American is going to be required to turn over medical information of themselves, of their children, to the IRS so that the IRS can verify that they have qualified insurance. Here's what's great. Ask the IRS where that form is that we're going to have to fill out and turn over to them come January 2014.
Bill Hennessy,
they don't have it.
I'm going to just guess, Bill, that just what Jennifer just said. Not only you have to give your income taxes to the IRS, but you got to turn over all your health care records to the IRS, which we're now learning have just been attacking and targeting conservative groups. This could cause an uproar. I asked this of Rick Santelli. Is this going to remobilize and re-energize the whole Tea Party movement? Do you see that coming?
Yeah, yes, I do, Larry, and it's right back to the same target we were on in 2009, which is Obamacare. You know, we were in the streets every night, it seemed like, in 2009 and early 2010, fighting this thing because we knew what an intrusion it was going to be. 47 brand new broad powers for the IRS in this thing, and it's an IRS that, you know, we used to joke about the incompetency of the IRS. We can't joke about that anymore. They're ruthlessly efficient. They're incredibly efficient at putting down who they consider their political enemies. That's absolutely frightening.
Yeah, it is frightening. Going to leave it there. Tea Partiers Bill Hennessy and Jennifer Stefano. Thank you, Jen. You're going to be back a little bit later in the show.